For an exhausting stretch of 4 years, he endured through sweltering summers, icy winters, and relentless storms. Perched in the same location, he gazed continuously down the road, waiting for a person who never returned. A German shepherd named Max transformed into a remnant of days gone by, an enigma that remained unsolved. Although people attempted to intervene, he staunchly refused to depart. He was waiting, yet it was unclear for what or for whom. Then, on one remarkable morning, an extraordinary event altered his fate entirely. Prepare to be amazed by the astonishing turn of events that completed this dog's journey. Stick around until the conclusion. It's a tale that will rejuvenate your belief in devotion, affection, and fate. As dawn broke, the morning sun cast elongated shadows over the deserted highway, its rays gradually dissipating the fine mist that lingered on the road. The highway was mostly silent, save for the sporadic vehicle that sped by, and there he was, ever present, a German shepherd stationed by the old gas station. His coat was covered in dust, looking somewhat disheveled, his gaze firmly fixed on the road stretching before him. His movements were minimal. He barely recognized the passers-by, merely continuing his vigil. Max had claimed this spot as his own for the past 4 years. Initially, Max's origins were a mystery. Truck drivers, daily commuters, and the dwindling number of town locals all took notice of him, yet no one dared to drive him away. They offered him food, which he would consume, but only once they had departed. Should someone approach too closely, he would rise, move a few steps away, and settle down once more. He never showed aggression, never barked, nor did he create any disturbances. He simply waited. Betty Clarkson, the local diner owner, aged 56 with short gray hair and eyes that were kind yet piercing, was among the first to show concern for Max. Every morning, prior to opening her diner, she would stop by the gas station to leave food near the dilapidated fuel pumps. "Poor creature," she often remarked to the curious, "he's waiting for someone. I'm not sure who, but I hope they return soon." Max braved the harshest of winters and the most oppressive summers, always returning to his familiar haunt. He nestled against the corroded walls of the deserted gas station, seeking refuge from the relentless elements. On particularly silent nights, his soft whimpers would pierce the quiet, a solitary, poignant echo that resonated with all who heard it. Occasionally, individuals attempted to provide him a new home. A trucker once tried to lure him into his vehicle. A young woman came equipped with a leash, hoping to guide him away. Yet Max remained resolute. Whenever someone made an attempt to move him, he would resist, dart a few yards away, and resume his post, his gaze ever fixed on the distant horizon, as if anticipating the return of someone who had promised to come back. It was a brisk autumn morning when Samuel Thompson, a 32-year-old journalist with short, dark brown hair and a lean, curious demeanor, first truly noticed Max. Having passed through the town many times en route to various assignments, Samuel had seen the dog by the gas station but hadn't thought much of it until now. There was something about Max's steadfast posture and the quiet determination in his eyes that made Samuel decelerate. He pulled over at the gas station and remained in his car, observing. The dog sat motionless, attentive, and waiting. Capturing the moment, Samuel quickly snapped a photo with his phone, driven by a sudden surge of curiosity. Samuel then made his way into Betty's diner, greeted by the inviting aroma of fresh coffee and bacon. A handful of regulars populated the counter, their chatter revolving around an impending storm. Betty, spotting Samuel, offered a prompt greeting. "Coffee?" "Sure," Samuel replied, settling onto a stool. "And can I ask you something?" As she served the coffee, Betty leaned on the counter. "You're going to ask about the dog, aren't you?" A surprised Samuel raised an eyebrow. "So, it's not just me." With a knowing chuckle, Betty responded, "Honey, that dog has been out there for 4 years. You're a bit late to the mystery." Puzzled, Samuel inquired, 4 years? Waiting for what?" Exhaling deeply, Betty wiped her hands on a towel, pausing before she replied. "Well, that's the mystery, isn't it? Some think he belonged to a trucker who used to frequent this place. Others believe he lost his way and couldn't find his way back home. But me..." Her gaze drifted to the window, fixing on the loyal silhouette by the gas station. "I think he's waiting for his family." Samuel looked out the window again, his thoughts swirling. He had delved into numerous human interest stories in the past, tales of missing individuals, survival, and even reunions between lost pets and their owners. However, Max's story was distinct. Why had this dog steadfastly waited 4 years at the same spot? He took out his phone and opened his investigative notes app, determined to uncover the truth behind Max's vigil. 4 years earlier, Max had a family. He wasn't a stray nor lost. He was cherished. His days were marked by laughter, comfort, and the exuberant energy of a young boy who loved him dearly. Oliver Smith, merely 10 years old back then, had shared his entire childhood with Max. From the day his parents introduced the small German Shepherd puppy into their home, Oliver and Max had been inseparable. Oliver would rise early each day, eager to be the first to say good morning to Max. The dog slept at the foot of his bed, followed him to the kitchen each morning, and waited at the door every afternoon to greet Oliver returning from school. Anna Smith, Oliver's mother, 38, nurturing yet assertive, with deep brown eyes and medium-length chestnut hair, often remarked, "I'm not sure who's more thrilled, Oliver to see Max or Max to see Oliver." His father, Michael Smith, 41, a robust man with a serious demeanor and sharp blue eyes, was not a man of many words. However, when he came home from work, he always took a moment to kneel and stroke Max's ears, affectionately saying, "Good boy, watching over the family." Max was more than just a pet. He was a cherished family member until the night that changed everything. A storm had swiftly moved in, bringing heavy rain and strong winds that made the roads treacherous. The Smith family was returning home from a weekend visit to Anna's parents. Max was in the back seat with Oliver, resting his head on the boy's lap. The soothing sound of rain tapping on the car windows lent a sense of calm. Suddenly, headlights flashed alarmingly close, approaching too quickly. Anna barely managed to scream before their car was struck, sending it careening off the highway. The world seemed to spin and break apart. Glass shattered, metal wailed. Oliver shouted for his parents. Then there was silence. When Max regained consciousness, darkness enveloped him. His ears rang, his body throbbed, and the air was thick with the smell of smoke. In the distance, he could hear the clamor of voices, sirens, and crying. Disoriented, he moved forward. The car was overturned, its front end demolished. Oliver was nowhere to be seen. Not gone, but being carried away. Max saw people, firefighters, paramedics, and others, rushing to extract Michael, Anna, and Oliver from the wreckage. He barked, desperately trying to reach them, but someone caught hold of him, trying to restrain him. Overwhelmed by panic, Max struggled, eventually breaking free, and ran. He didn't know where he was heading, but he was determined to find his family. Amid the tumult of the storm, Max fled until everything around him became unrecognizable, eventually reaching an isolated segment of highway. That desolate place is where he began his long vigil. He roamed the stretch of road back and forth, searching for the car, for Oliver, for any familiar sign, yet they never appeared. Driven by hunger and fatigue, he eventually ventured towards a nearby small town where he discovered the gas station. Situated near the site of the accident, it offered some shelter, and Max somehow sensed that if he just stayed there, his family might return for him. And so, he continued to wait. Now, years later, Samuel sat in his car, absorbed in the old missing dog reports on his laptop. He had been piecing together Max's story for several hours. That's when he stumbled upon it. A report filed 4 years earlier by Michael and Anna Smith, stating that their German Shepherd, Max, had disappeared following a car crash on Highway 214. Samuel's pulse quickened as he absorbed the implications. The accident site was barely a mile from where Max had loyally waited all these years. Max was not merely a stray. He was a dog whose vigil for his family had never ceased, unbeknownst to them. With the revelation spinning in his head, Samuel gripped the steering wheel tightly. 4 years of unwavering hope and waiting. The puzzle pieces were aligning, yet the pressing question lingered. What was the next step? Glancing at Max, who was still stationed by the gas station, his gaze unwaveringly fixed on the road, Samuel knew he couldn't simply drive away. He reached for his camera resting on the passenger seat. This story, if none other, deserved to be shared. Positioning his car at a respectful distance to avoid alarming Max, Samuel set up his camera. The evening sun cast a soft golden light that accentuated the solitary, longing look in Max's eyes. He pressed the record button. "This is Max, and he has been waiting here for 4 years," Samuel began, the words flowing with an innate ease. "It's unclear how he's managed to survive, but every day he sits in the same spot, staring down the same stretch of road, waiting for a family that never returned. Many have tried to help him, but he remains steadfast in his place. He waits for a reason." Samuel focused his lens on Max's shabby coat, the way his ears flicked at the sound of nearby traffic, and the glimmer of hope in his weary eyes. "Today, I uncovered something incredible. 4 years ago, Max survived a car crash. His family believed he was lost forever. Little did they know, he's been waiting for them ever since." He held the shot on Max for a moment longer before ceasing the recording. Samuel recognized a compelling narrative when he saw one, and this story was bound to resonate deeply with viewers. He immediately shared the video across social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, accompanying it with the caption, "The loyal dog that never left." This German Shepherd has waited in the same place for 4 years following a devastating accident. His family presumed him dead, but he held on. Help us reunite Max with his family. Will you join our search for our devoted companion? He awaited responses, and promptly, the video amassed over 10,000 views. The comments section overflowed with emotional reactions. "This, tears at my heart. Someone must find his family. Dogs are just too pure for this world. Has he been helped?" Then, a miraculous twist occurred as a woman commented, "I think I recognize this dog." Meanwhile, on the other side of the nation, in a serene suburban residence, 14-year-old Oliver Smith, with his brown hair and hazel eyes, lounged on his sofa browsing through his phone. He opened a video that had been forwarded to him. As soon as he saw the dog's face on his screen, his heart skipped a beat. It couldn't possibly be. He sat upright, clutching his phone tightly, his breathing heavy as he listened to the narrator in the video recount Max's ordeal. Tears formed in Oliver's eyes as he murmured, "Max." At that moment, his mother, Anna Smith, entered the room. Oliver, shaking, turned to her, his voice quivering, "Mom, I think they found him." Anna's expression turned to one of concern as she took the phone from his trembling hands and pressed play. As the video played, memories of Max flooded back, mixing joy with confusion. After the video, Anna drove them to the meeting spot, turning to Oliver and the dog. She softly suggested, "Let's give him a moment," fully aware that rekindling their bond after such a long separation would require time and patience. As they emerged from the car, Oliver knelt beside Max, speaking in a gentle, encouraging tone. "Come on, buddy. Let's explore a bit." Max hesitated briefly before stepping out, his muscles taut, yet his demeanor showing a clear eagerness to reconnect with his former surroundings. He ventured a few cautious steps towards the porch, sniffing the air, as if piecing together the fragments of his past environment. Anna observed him, her heart filled with both hope and apprehension. She noticed the uncertainty flickering in Max's gaze, his movements tentative. torn between the familiarity of his old home and the unknown that had enveloped his recent years. "It's okay, Max," she called out gently. "We're right here." At the sound of Anna's voice, a voice he faintly recognized, Max's ears lifted. That voice, imbued with love and familiarity, seemed to reassure him. Gradually, with hesitant steps, he moved towards her, his tail starting to wag slightly as he recognized his family after such a long separation. Anna crouched down, her arms open invitingly. "Come here, boy," she beckoned. At her call, Max bounded into her arms, his body shaking as years of withheld emotions and anxiety poured out. Oliver quickly joined in, encircling both Max and his mother in a tight hug, allowing the old wounds of separation to begin healing into something new. Michael, watching from a short distance, took in the heartwarming scene of his family reuniting with Max. A sense of profound gratitude overwhelmed him as he witnessed the enduring strength of their bond, unbroken by time and distance. "Welcome home, Max," he whispered to himself, a broad smile spreading across his face as he savored the moment. Indeed, adapting to their altered lives was inevitable. Yet, for this evening, their reunion was all that mattered. Despite the years it took, the bond of love they shared was set to grow only stronger. After the accident, the Smith family had relocated from their old residence in Wyoming to a larger home in Denver, Colorado, featuring a spacious backyard, a change in setting that Max hadn't recognized as home. Oliver unbuckled his seatbelt and stepped out, pausing to allow Max to follow. The dog hesitated, a noticeable change from his previous enthusiastic greetings. Anna caught her breath, sharing a concerned glance with Michael, who then nodded and approached, squatting by the open door. "Max," Michael called out in a gentle yet assertive tone. "It's okay, boy. Come on out." Max's ears twitched, but his body remained still. Oliver knelt next to his father, reassuringly adding, "You're safe now, I promise." Time seemed to slow as they waited. Finally, Max cautiously made his move, stepping onto the pavement as if it were alien territory. His form was tense, ears flicking with every noise. The rustling trees and a distant car seemed to put him on edge, his tail lowering in apprehension of something amiss. Once inside, Oliver guided Max to his old dog bed nestled in a corner of the living room. "It's yours, buddy," he said, patting the cushion. Max gave it a tentative sniff but opted not to settle. Instead, he paced around with a low tail and stiff posture. The familiar warmth of the house, mingled scents and surrounding voices overwhelmed him. Anna knelt down, extending her hand towards him. "You're home now," she whispered softly. At her touch, Max flinched visibly. Oliver noticed the tension ripple through Max's body, the quick dart of his eyes towards the door as if contemplating escape. A pang of realization hit Oliver. Max had endured 4 years of hardship outdoors in the elements, relying on his instincts to survive. Could he still recall the feeling of being home? The initial nights proved to be the toughest. Max consistently chose to sleep near the back door instead of inside. Oliver did everything he could think of. He spread out blankets, placed food by the bed, and even slept on the floor next to him. But Max remained restless. He would curl up, gazing at the door as if he were still expecting the return of a family long gone or a past that had vanished. Oliver spent those nights lying awake, observing Max, yearning to comfort him, yet pondering how one mends a heart that has endured 4 years of silent waiting. So he offered Max what he himself had needed: time. A week later, on a chilly morning, a breakthrough occurred. Oliver, groggy from sleep, descended the stairs to find a surprising scene. Max wasn't by the door, he was nestled on his dog bed, at peace at last. Oliver stood frozen, barely breathing, as he watched the German shepherd sleep, his body relaxed and breathing even. A wave of relief washed over Oliver. It was a small victory, but it was progress. He quickly texted his mom. "Mom, he's sleeping on his bed." Her response came swiftly. Don't wake him. Let him feel safe. Oliver put down his phone and sat on the floor, quietly watching Max sleep peacefully in his home for the first time since their reunion. Later that evening, as Oliver was reminiscing over an old photo album filled with pictures of Max as a puppy, he sensed a movement beside him. Turning, he saw Max standing there, looking intently at him. Oliver remained still. Then, slowly, Max laid his head in Oliver's lap. Overwhelmed with emotion, Oliver gently stroked his fur. "You remember me, don't you?" he whispered softly. Max exhaled a gentle breath and, for the first time since his return, wagged his tail. Over the weeks, Max had made significant strides. He began eating regularly, slept indoors, and shadowed Oliver throughout the house. His response to Anna's touch had changed too. He no longer flinched but instead wagged his tail more frequently. Yet moments of doubt persisted. Every time the back door opened, Max's ears would perk up, his body tense, as if he was on the brink of fleeing. Oliver noted these reactions each time. His parents reassured him that time would heal, explaining that Max had waited so long for this reunion that he might not know how to fully let go of that vigil. Time wasn't Oliver's concern. He worried about what might happen if Max ever decided to take that chance to leave. He knew that he would soon find out. The afternoon unfolded quietly, the sky adorned with gentle hues of gold and blue. Oliver, returning from school, dropped his backpack by the door and was greeted by Max, whose tail managed a timid wag. Oliver bent down to scratch behind Max's ears. "You want to go outside, buddy?" Max cocked his head, eliciting a smile from Oliver. "Come on, let's try it." Oliver had anticipated this day for weeks. They had been cautious, keeping Max on a leash during outdoor times to prevent him from bolting in panic. But today, Oliver felt it was time to test Max's sense of belonging, to see if he could trust this place as his home. He approached the back door, opened it slowly, and stepped onto the porch with Max hesitating before following, sniffing the air tentatively. "Go ahead." Max's ears perked up as he stepped onto the grass, cautiously exploring the backyard. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the calm, the startling sound of fireworks. Max stiffened immediately. His body locked in place, ears flattened, tail tucked. Oliver's heart sank as another booming sound echoed through the air. Before he could react, Max bolted. "Max!" Oliver sprinted after him, his voice filled with panic. Max was already darting across the yard towards the open gate, a mistake Oliver realized too late. His breath heavy, Oliver chased after him. But Max, driven by instinct, was faster. The sound of the fireworks, the vast open space, the overwhelming panic all triggered Max's survival instincts. He dashed through the gate and onto the sidewalk. "Max, wait!" Oliver called out, his voice cracking. Max halted abruptly at the street's edge. For a tense moment, he stood there, torn between a past filled with loss and the possibility of finding what he had long been searching for. Oliver's plea was heartfelt, desperate. "Don't go." Max turned to face him, the conflict evident in his eyes. Then, making his decision, he slowly walked back towards Oliver. As Oliver knelt down, shaking, he whispered, "It's okay, buddy. I'm right here." Max moved closer and gently pressed his head against Oliver's chest. Oliver embraced him tightly, his voice thick with emotion. "You're home." At that moment, Max's tail wagged slightly, a sign that for the first time, he truly felt at home. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow across the Smiths' backyard, the days were noticeably shorter, yet Max's path to recovery was just beginning. He was no longer the apprehensive dog that had first arrived weeks earlier. Max had transformed, evident in both his actions and his newfound perspective on the world, more open, less fearful, and visibly less guarded. Oliver watched from the edge of the yard as Max sprinted across the grass, a dynamic blur of brown and black, his tail proudly aloft, showing no hesitation or doubt. Max was truly embracing his freedom. Over the past month, Max had increasingly spent his time outdoors, running freely in the backyard, his movements steady and assured. Anna had reservations about letting him off the leash, but Oliver had been firm on the necessity of rebuilding Max's trust and his sense of freedom. It had been a gradual journey, but with each passing day, Max became more at ease. The fireworks scare had been a hiccup, yet it also marked a pivotal moment for Max, helping him realize that it was safe to stay, to truly belong. "Hey, Max," Oliver called out, waving his arms energetically. Max halted immediately, turning towards Oliver with eyes twinkling with sheer joy. He bounded back, rushing toward Oliver as if the distance of separation had never existed. Upon reaching him, Max skidded to a stop and leaped up, resting his front paws on Oliver's chest. Oliver laughed heartily, bracing himself as Max affectionately licked his face, his tail wagging uncontrollably. "You're a good boy, aren't you?" Oliver managed to say amidst his laughter, his voice laden with emotion. Max responded with a single, joyful bark, then hopped down and darted around Oliver in circles. It was their new game, Max teasing Oliver to catch him, each pause seeming to challenge, "Catch me if you can." Oliver's smile was broad and genuine. This Max was not the same dog who had endured years of loneliness and survival. This was a Max reborn, the dog who had finally found his way back home. Inside the house, Anna and Michael observed from the window, their expressions filled with gentle relief. This past month had been about more than just rebuilding Max's trust. It was about restoring their family's faith in the world and in each other. Anna turned to Michael, her voice a soft murmur. "Do you think he remembers us?" Michael, his gaze fixed on Max and Oliver playing outside, nodded. "I think he does." Oliver's laughter echoed across the yard as he and Max played, his joy palpable in the crisp air. The rhythmic sound of Max's paws thudding against the ground resonated as he raced around, always glancing back whenever Oliver called out to him. From inside, Anna watched, her eyes moistening. "Good boy," she whispered as a tear traced down her cheek. Michael, sensing her emotion, squeezed her hand reassuringly. "He's home." The transformation in Max had not gone unnoticed by others. Betty, from the local diner, had stopped by earlier in the week to deliver Max's favorite treats. Handing them to Oliver, she commented with a smile. "He looks good. He's finally starting to settle in." Oliver, accepting the treats, agreed. "Yeah, it's like he knows he's safe now." As Anna opened the door to call them in for dinner, Max immediately paused his playful chase, his ears perking up at her voice. With a happy wag of his tail, he trotted over to her, followed by Oliver, who wore a broad smile. Max sat obediently before Anna, waiting for his treat as she crouched down to pet him. "Good boy, it's time for dinner," she said, her smile wide. That evening, after the meal, the family gathered in the living room, Max comfortably sprawled on the floor by their feet. The atmosphere felt different, complete. For the first time in 4 years, Max had truly returned to them, not just in body but in spirit as well. As Oliver leaned back against the couch, Max rested his head on his lap, a familiar comfort from days long past. "Good night, buddy," Oliver whispered softly, his hand gently stroking Max's fur. Content and at peace, Max's eyes slowly closed and he drifted into sleep. No longer haunted by his past, he was finally, unequivocally home. For 4 years, Max endured storms, solitude, and uncertainty, yet he never lost hope. He clung to the belief that his family would return. Ultimately, his unwavering faith was rewarded. This tale transcends a simple reunion. It embodies loyalty, love, and second chances. It celebrates the enduring bond between a dog and the people who cherish him. While not every lost dog experiences a miracle like Max's, his story underscores that hope is never futile. If this narrative has moved you, join us in spreading the word. Adopt, don't shop. Persist in your commitment to animals that place their trust in you. Share this story to inspire more people to believe in the power of loyalty. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications to discover more uplifting stories like this. And remember, if you ever spot a dog waiting by the road, consider that perhaps they're waiting for someone who still loves them.